Coffee shop toilets in Singapore have gotten dirtier over the past few years, according to an island-wide study. More than 9 in 10 Singaporeans also say that efforts to clean up these toilets and those at hawker centres are less than satisfactory. Now, authorities have stepped up checks this year, and now a government task force set up to battle dirty public toilets tells CNA it will release recommendations in the first quarter of next year to cover key areas, including the design, cleaning and audit of public toilets. Now, to tell us more on this, I'm now joined by CNA reporter Alif Amsyar. Alif, welcome to the program.
Pleasure as always, Shah.
So you embarked on your own investigation into the conditions of our public toilets. What did you find so far?
Well, I sure did, Shah. And before I dive into that, I'd like to pose you a very simple question. Do you use public toilets and what do you think of them?
Of course I do, yes. I've had my fair share of clean and dirty toilets, but I personally prefer to use those in the shopping centres because I find them generally cleaner. The floors are drier, the flushing systems work, most importantly, for most of them at least.
Well, I totally agree with that assessment. And you asked me before this show why I started this investigation. And really it's because I took a trip to Japan last month. And when I was there, you know, the toilets were really spanking clean. And when I came back to Singapore, the contrast between the toilets in Japan and the toilets in Singapore, particularly in the coffee shops, became a bit more stark. So I was a bit curious as to why the conditions are so. And I began on this little investigation. And over the past month, I visited 50 toilets across coffee shops, hawker centres, shopping centres, and it was really an eye-opening experience. From my personal observation, I think coffee shop toilets were much worse than hawker centres, and shopping centres were actually one of the best in the best conditions. And here are some interesting finds. I brought some pictures for you, Shah.
Okay.
Let's start with the first picture. Over here, you can see that the toilet paper, used toilet paper, is strewn over the toilet seat, and really irresponsible behavior from the user. And from the picture, you can even smell it, can't you? You know, and certainly this makes it very difficult for the next user to use this public toilet. And this next picture, and this is taken at a coffee shop toilet. If you look closely, Shah, you can see footprints on it. Can you believe it? So this only means one thing. It only means one thing, that the user had squatted on the toilet seat while doing his business. So really irresponsible behavior as well. And this next picture is a more common sight across the toilets that I visited. Wet sinks and wet floors certainly poses danger to users if they're young, if they're an elderly. Sometimes they were also soapy, that makes it even more slippery than if it was only water. I also spoke to Singaporeans to find out their sentiments on using the public toilets. Let's have a listen.
I feel like it varies from area to area. Like MRT public toilets might be more properly maintained. Coffee shop toilets might not be all that good in quality.
Those are a bit scary for me. I haven't had a really good experience. Messy behavior of human beings, I think. They don't clean up. And then lack of toilet paper, and the floors all slippery.
Sometimes what I see is that there's used toilet papers around the toilet bowls, or like used sanitary pads which are around there.
So some feedback there about public toilets, Alif. The general consensus is that toilets at coffee shops are not so well maintained. So what are authorities doing so far about this?
Well, really, the authorities are seeing this as a pertinent and urgent problem. Latest figures this year show that more than 1,200 enforcement actions were taken against premise owners for toilet-related lapses. And this is more than triple the enforcement actions taken over the same period last year. So you can really see that comparison just over a short period of time. And of these 1,200 cases, Shah, more than 3/4 or more than 900 cases were against coffee shop toilets. So really spells the kind of urgent need to address this situation. 10 coffee shops were also suspended for toilet-related lapses. And this is compared to 1 each in 2022 and 2023, so 10 times more. And of course, this points to a situation that the authorities want to address, and that includes enforcement action, that includes inspection checks. I followed a National Environment Agency officer to really understand what goes behind an inspection check. Let's have a listen. From sizzling satay to iconic dishes like chicken rice, this food centre in Upper Thomson offers an array of local delights. But today, as tempting as it may be, I'm not here quite for the food. Instead, I head to its public toilets to join Inspection Officer Ivan Yap in his mission. Let's go. He's from the National Environment Agency and says surprise spot checks on hawker centre toilets happen monthly.
Before we proceed with the inspection, we will try to engage the contractors to see if they are around to accompany us for the check.
Similar checks are done by the Singapore Food Agency at coffee shop toilets. So where do we start?
Okay, so first thing when we step into the toilet, we'll look out for any loose litters on the ground, or any stains on the floor tiles, the urinals, as well as the sink. So first thing we can check is the presence of soap and the working condition of the soap dispensers. The tap.
Okay, and is this area where it's usually the wettest?
Yes, that's right, because users usually have the habit of flicking excess water on the ground, which is actually discouraged. It's actually a very bad habit, and it will cause a lot of water marks on the floor, stick trip falls, and in the long run, it might just cause a permanent stain on the ground as well.
Along the way, we also see if the bins are overflowing. Then, the urinals are next, which is often what causes a stench.
We have to ensure that the flushing apparatus is actually working fine, so we have to check on it individually. So same thing for the other two, and also check for any stains on the urinals or around the floor tiles area.
And what happens if the conditions are less satisfactory?
For lapses identified, usually what we will do is we will inform the premise owner or operators on the lapse observed, and we will follow up with an email to them stating that there's a lapse observed with a photo taken, and say that there will be enforcement actions taken against them.
Operators must fix anything faulty or broken, like hand dryers and soap dispensers, by a given deadline. If nothing is done, they can be slapped with fines up to $5,000. Each cubicle is also examined. Close attention is given to the toilet seat and then the flush. We also make sure that the doors lock properly and that there's enough toilet paper. And how would you rate this toilet?
Everything is satisfactory.
Satisfactory, okay.
Doesn't look like it's an easy job at all for Mr. Yap, Alif. Talk to us about the importance and the need to enforce the cleanliness of toilets.
Well, certainly, as you heard from Officer Yap there, he talked about the fall risk. But I think the bigger concern on people's minds would be the germs that lurk in our public toilets. And I spoke to a doctor. He said that, there's a risk of a salmonella bacteria spreading. There's a risk of skin infection, though the risk of transmission is low because visits to toilets are usually transient. He said that people still have to pay attention. Let's have a listen at what else he has to say.
The coffee shop is a place where people eat and things like that, and there's a higher chance, you go to a toilet, you don't sanitize your hands after that, and after that you go on to consume food, and there's a higher chance of you getting gastrointestinal diseases from that transmission itself.
Well, interestingly, Shah, a new Singapore Management University survey echoed these sentiments. Just out today, they found that the dirtiest toilets were those at coffee shops were typically closest to a cooking facility. And this raises the risk of food contamination. For example, when the food handlers go to these toilets, they don't sanitize their hands properly, and coming out from a dirty toilet, that really causes a risk of, food contamination, right? This fresh 2024 study is led by SMU's Principal Lecturer of Stats, Rosie Ching, and she previously did a study in 2016, 2020 and 2023. And this year, together with a team of students, they scoured over 1,000 coffee shops and over 100 hawker centre toilets. So really a huge endeavour there. They also found that the coffee shop toilets are even dirtier this year compared to last year. And in fact, the team overall says that the toilets at coffee shop are at its dirtiest since 2016. Right, to find out more, I sat on a one-on-one interview with Ms. Ching.
I've seen myself that these places are often very cramped, dark, poorly lit, with inadequate ventilation. no to inadequate ventilation, hardly any room to move around, dirty floors, oily floors, you have cockroaches running around, and often in very close proximity to cooking facilities in these places.
So, Alif, we know that a majority of Singaporeans believe that public toilets have gotten dirtier over the years, and all the efforts to clean them up are basically not enough at this point. What are the key findings, can you tell us, from this latest SMU study?
Well, a slew of other key findings that we can glean from this study. Here, the team also ranked the cleanliness of public toilets by the kinds of premises they're in. So we have coffee shop toilets, hawker centre toilets, and for the first time in this study, for sharper perspective, they included MRT toilets as well as shopping centre toilets. Now, it is found that the shopping centre and train station toilets were on average the cleanest, and both groups scored above 75 marks on the Toilet Cleanliness Index, and ranked third were hawker centre toilets. Right there, hawker centre toilets ranked third after shopping centres and MRT stations. But again, right at the bottom, you can see there in red, coffee shop toilets, which fell below the passing mark for the fourth straight time. Now, the study also ranked the level of toilet cleanliness by geographical location. So we have a map of Singapore here, right at the top of the list. Toilets found on the southern islands. And when it comes to the mainland, we have Newton, Tanglin and the downtown core. On the flip side, regions marked in red, as you see on the map, like Pioneer and Tuas in the west, were those with the dirtiest toilets, along with Sembawang, Novena and Rocho. I spoke to Ms. Ching. I asked her why this could be the case, and she said there are some red flags in these places. Let's find out why.
Well, we can go by the toilet cleaning schedules, which are often absent or just not updated. Some haven't been updated for years. So this shows, this is an indication of some kind of omission of cleaning updates, or if they are even cleaned or when they are cleaned.
So the toilet cleaning schedules are not as updated, Alif, but I think the onus should also be on us, isn't it? To keep our toilets clean. What's next then? What are we going to do with these very latest findings?
Well, of course, as you mentioned there, it's our responsibility. But Ms. Ching says that this is a continuing mission. She plans to go back to these toilets to find out if the situation does improve in the future. To add, the study also found that close to 1 to 2 Singaporeans express a willingness to pay if there is a guaranteed cleanliness that they can achieve. That's if, and of those willing, 8 in 10 were open to paying 10 to 30 cents. But only those in 4 out of those 10 were willing to fork out more than 50 cents, Shah. Okay. And next, these results, Ms. Ching says she will share with key partners to see if they can come up with other solutions as well. And this, of course, includes the Public Hygiene Council, which looks at raising the level of cleanliness in Singapore, as well as the Restroom Association of Singapore, which advocates a clean toilet for all. And I spoke to them as well. They have plans in the coming year to address this issue. These posh-looking restrooms are what you would least expect to find at a 400-seat coffee shop tucked in an industrial park in Chai Chee. It's the result of an $80,000 investment poured in by the eatery owners to spruce up the washrooms. But things aren't simply about the aesthetics. Tech like this feedback panel, for example, allows users to alert staff when the floors are wet or when the soap has run dry. And such additions have proven to be handy in the long term.
Definitely, somehow you will help to save a lot of things. Like, for example, like you don't need to keep on ask my staff to go in and check whether there's toilet paper, is it the floor is not clean, the toilet's cubicle is it not clean, what's run out. So with all this tech, it helps. We don't have the luxury like hotels or malls that they have like manpower just to clean the toilets. But I think with all this, it actually helps us from cutting down manpower just for cleaning the toilet.
Last month, it became the first coffee shop restroom to be rated 5 stars under Restroom Association Singapore's certification program, which grades public toilets 3 to 6 stars based on things like cleanliness and amenities available. RAS is also finding new ways to help more coffee shop toilets inch closer to the gold standard.
What we're trying to do is to come up with new guidelines for toilets in coffee shops in tandem working with the Singapore Food Agency, because they are tasked with food safety and we are putting an additional layer to that of hygiene and cleanliness. These guidelines have been developed keeping in mind the specific realities and challenges of coffee shops and how we can take them one step forward at a time.
It aims to roll this out by the third quarter of next year. The idea is to work on improving the basics, such as making toilets much brighter and less stinky. Plus, it's also working with partners to make smart technology such as sensors more affordable for coffee shops, along with creating tailored training for cleaning staff.
We need to provide the right kind of training for the cleaning staff. And a lot of the coffee shop cleaners tend to be people from an elder generation. And we need to design bespoke and customized training programs for them so that they can do their job better.
The Public Hygiene Council, meanwhile, says education is another crucial piece in this search for solutions. Students at 2 primary schools learn the importance of good toilet etiquette and how to keep them clean during this toilet cleanliness module piloted earlier this year.
We really are trying to inculcate this good positive behavior from a very young age, so that these children know the basis of how to keep toilets clean, and they can go home and tell their family members as well.
It now wants to build on this effort with plans to bring this to another 15 schools in the new year underway.
Okay, I might want to check out that restroom in Chai Chee, Alif. What else can we expect from this national effort then?
Well, certainly, Shah, this little figure here is going to be a central character in this national effort. This is Toilemon.
Okay.
It was introduced in 2022 to remind everyone to keep their toilets clean. It's also made physical appearances at eateries, so if you're lucky, you can see him, the giant version of Toilemon. And this is all part of the Keep Singapore Clean campaign. And we'll be keeping a close watch on how all these efforts will come together in the coming year and to really address this issue, Shah.
All right, our battle for clean public toilets continues with the help of Toilemon. Alif, thank you so much for speaking with us. Alif Amsyar there, speaking on public toilets in Singapore.